The Fantasy Six-Pack Hour. With your hosts, Joe Bond.
You're awful.
And AJ Applegarth.
It's Sin Shu Chu. It's a mouthful.
All right. Welcome back to the Fantasy Six-Pack Hour, everybody. We're back. Better than ever, right? No, I don't know. My name is Joe Bond, founder of FantasySixPack.net. With me, as usual, Mr. AJ Applegarth. What's up, man? Ready to talk some fantasy football finally?
I am. I see we're both donning our
hell yeah, dude.
plugs of shirts.
I was kind of hoping you were, just not the maroon one.
Well, yeah.
But it's cool. I mean, we could have been in uniform. It's fine.
I feel like the pink one is the only one that I know where it is.
Where it is? Oh, that's a shame. Doesn't surprise me at all with you. But anyway,
Maybe.
all right. So yeah, as I said, we are jumping into our fantasy football draft season shows. Today we're going to be talking about some fantasy football advice that we want to give you all, and it's take a step back, right? Geared a little bit toward the casual player, right? But we all probably need to get reminded about this. I am guilty as ever. You get into the black hole of Twitter, right? And you just get sucked in into the depth of fantasy football and all the nuances of it. The SuperFlex, the 2 QBs, the Devy, the dynasties, the IDPs, everything. And it can make you forget the basics sometimes. And so we all need to get reminded of it, myself included. And, but the other thing to think about, right, is just that the vast majority of people who play fantasy football are just casual about it. Like, they're not researching for 100 hours before their draft, like, say we might, type of thing. And they're not looking at depth charts. They're grabbing a rankings 10 minutes before their draft and going, yep, that's what I'm using. That's it. And so, this is just something that hopefully they are listening, you guys are listening to if you are the casual player and can learn from it, and if you are learning from this, we hope that you watch the rest of our shows and want to learn more. That's what I'm ultimately here for. That's why I started the site. I wanted to teach people, about fantasy football, fantasy baseball. And so I kind of wanted to take a step back this year and do this as our first show. That being said, make sure if you are here, hit that subscribe button, hit those like buttons, leave those comments. We appreciate it. That helps us out a ton. And without further ado, let's bring on our guests. That's right. I said guests. We've got Emily Lefko and Garrett Ball, both writers for Fantasy Six Pack. I'm proud to have them here to be joining us doing this.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. How are y'all doing tonight, Emily?
Doing excellent. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Garrett, what's going on, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
All right, man.
Not
a lot to say yet.
We'll get there. We got a lot of talking to do. I get it.
A long
dude,
days,
I feel it, man. I feel it too. But I'm excited finally here talking some football. I've been doing team previews out the wazoo for the last 2 weeks. I'm happy to be doing something a little bit different for a change. But before we jump into things, let's do our beer/drink of the week.
Beer.
All right, so I know you guys are not bringing the beer this week, but that's no worries. Share with us, Emily, what you got in there.
Ooh, I have some Blue Monster energy in here for me.
All right, hey, you have a lot more energy than we will at the end. Promise us that. Garrett, what's up, man? What you got?
So, despite my young-looking face, I am actually old enough to drink. However, I just went with some good old Southern-style sweet tea tonight.
All right, good stuff. AJ, what you got, man?
I've got a couple of different things. What I posted into the thing there is actually not what I've opened yet, but I'm finishing off my growler from local brewery here, Bog Turtle Brewery. This is their Bristol Witch IPA. And I have a Evo Evolution Craft Brewing Company. Sorry, called Blurred Vines. Little play on music, I guess.
Blurred lines, blurred vines. I like that. Cool. Good stuff. I like it. So I'm drinking a brew that was bought for me on my birthday celebration weekend a couple weeks ago. True Respite, big sky. It's actually a triple IPA. So yeah, you literally might have more. You will definitely have more energy than me at the end, Emily. Because yeah, this one's
He's
good.
already drunk.
I should challenge you to something.
Bad. That's oh man. What did I just do to myself?
You opened the door. That's what you did.
Yeah, I totally just set myself up for that one. All right. So yeah, let's just jump right into this, shall we? So the way this is gonna go, we're gonna do a top 3 list for each of us. So we'll start with our number 3. Then we'll go number 2, then number 1, and we'll just go around the board here. We will start right below me. Emily, ladies first, go have at it. What is your number 3 fantasy football advice for the more casual player?
I wanted to point out that 59 million people across the United States play fantasy sports, and 78% of them play fantasy football. So I think it's exciting to own your own virtual team of real life players and manage a virtual game. It's so cool that we can own a franchise when in reality it'd be billions to acquire a team. So
absolutely.
The most important part of the process is the draft. And so for people who are new to drafting, new to fantasy, I would not recommend drafting until close to the NFL season. So maybe waiting 1 week before if you're new to fantasy.
That's a great one.
The reason I recommend that is that way you have more insight into player development and associated fantasy relevance. But by all means, if you think you know the deep sleepers and breakouts, then draft earlier. But I always recommend waiting to draft if you're new.
Yeah, I love that point, because for me, it's not necessarily wanting to go after these deeper sleepers and whatnot. It's just fear of injury. You draft these teams too early, and then half of your guys get injured, and you're like, oh, well, there goes my season. Okay. And if you're a casual player, you're like, whatever. And you're just throwing $20 away or whatever it might be. So you lose interest, and that's what we don't want to happen. So again, that's what we're here doing for this show. Great way to start us off.
Yeah, 100%. I agree. Even some of my leagues that are all industry people, we like to do them a week before the season because I just don't feel like dealing with the headache. So, I'm with you, but yeah, definitely the more casual fan, the more casual player needs to heed that advice. That is 100% spot on. And apparently we have somebody joining us here with I'm drinking the mango cart. What is that?
They're drinking it all.
All right. You're drinking the cart full. I love it.
Trying to think.
Yeah, no, I love it. I love that. I love that. The great way to start it off. Very, very basic advice, and that's what we're here for. So, Gary, give us your number 3, man. What you got?
All right, so I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of Emily here, and that is to do some mock drafts. It's just a little bit extra time, but it can be extremely beneficial for you to prepare for your draft day when you are doing it with your buddies or your friends at work or whatnot. And you'll be able to react a little bit better than they will if you do some mock drafts, because you'll know about where players are going, or what to do when the player that you're looking for gets taken, or sniped 2 picks before you were planning on taking them, and you'll be able to come up with backup plans, a lot quicker and a lot more fluidly than your league mates could be. And once you get to draft day and it actually is, it's go time, you'll be a lot more better equipped.
Yeah, I agree with that. And, I know doing a live mock draft with 10 or 12 total people can take a long time. So if you don't have that time, a tool I totally recommend is Fantasy Pros does a mock draft. They have a mock draft tool where you draft against the computer, right? it takes 5 minutes. So, you're taking a breather at work. Do a mock draft. Figure it out. It's not just knowing where the players are going. It also makes you learn the player pool more. I know for a fact I have lots of friends who are just casual players, and they don't know the player pool past like the 4th round, and it's crazy. So they're just taking the first person off the board every time after that, because that's all they know, or they're just taking like the random player they know from their hometown team or whatever. And that's fine. It's worked out in the past. I've seen it, but it's also just one of those. If you can do any small thing to give you an edge as a casual player, that doesn't take a lot of time. Mock drafts through Fantasy Pros is the way to go.
Yeah, I like that one a lot too. That was one I was thinking of and actually forgot to write down. So I was thinking the same thing. I was like, I meant to write that down too. Yeah. So I guess mine. I don't really have like a number 3, 2, 1. I kind of have one main theme for mine. But I'll throw this one out there because this is just very simple. And again, if you're a casual player, you're going into this, maybe hoping to win some money, not necessarily looking to get a whole lot out of it, whatnot. Just don't forget why you're doing it. What your goal is to accomplish. If it's to go in it and win money and, or take money from friends of yours, cool. All right. I like it. I'm always all for that. But you want to have fun. You want to just not take it too seriously. And I think that's the place we're really going here. So that's my number 3, if you will.
Yeah, that was one. If nobody said it, I was going to definitely leave for the very, very end, and just say, as the ultimate rule is just have fun. I mean, a lot of us get into this with our friends, more just to trash talk, bragging rights. I got into this with college, right? And I had no money, so we had no money on it, and so it was just who can beat, right? And so. It's all just have fun. It's a game, right? In the end, it's a game. Don't take it too seriously. Don't let it ruin your life. It's a game. It really is. And it's literally nothing to a certain extent. It is literally nothing we can control. So that's the biggest thing. We can think we drafted this awesome team, but ultimately, man, it's just, AJ missed the pre-meeting. But
I literally just pulled it up like 5 seconds ago.
Yes.
No, did not read it.
Nope, you didn't. Thank you. But yeah, ultimately that is what it's all about. It's just having fun. You're playing with friends most of the time as a casual player, so just remember that when it comes down to it.
I see it now. Yep.
So
here it is. That's why we did. Yep. Okay. Answered.
Thanks, AJ.
What's your number 3? Because I already took your number 1.
Well, that was not my number 1. That was my bonus. You're a jerk. So my number 3 is gonna be, as you're preparing for your draft, go out and find a set of rankings that you like. Obviously, I suggest ours over a Fantasy Six Pack. But look, I get it. There's a million fantasy football sites out there. Go find any set of rankings you like. I will give you, if you would have hit me up, if you don't really like mine, I will give you. You can hit me up on Twitter and ask me places that I would trust if it weren't my own. I will guide you elsewhere. The other thing to think about those rankings, though, is they are not a Bible. It is not, I'm up 24th and the 20th player on the rankings is still available. I have to take that player. But you already have 2 running backs at that point, or, whatever, right? You need to construct your team. You're building a full team that can compete. So you have to build a balanced team too. So don't use the rankings of the Bible. Use them as a guide. If you need a receiver go find the next best receiver, right? Also, if you don't like a player, if you just don't totally agree with my rankings or whoever's rankings, you don't have to. They're just a guide. They're something to help you along the way. I know too many people that are just like, well, the rankings told me to do it. It's not why they're there, but okay. Same thing with ADP. The ADP is there as a guide. You don't have to agree with it. It's just there to help you a little bit. So I don't know. You guys got any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I agree. Like you can't just go into the site that the platform will say that your league is in. I mean, unless you really want to. If you like their rankings, cool. Then by all means, go with it. But there's so much information. There's so much good content out there that people are putting out, including Fantasy Six Pack, obviously, shameless plug. But you don't. If you don't want to use our rankings, fine. Go to Fantasy Pros. Go to any of these other sites that are out there. Or go to multiple and compare them.
Yes.
Do your own kind of ECR, expert consensus rankings, and see where players are falling.
Can I just speak a little bit more to that?
I'll allow it.
Using Fantasy Pros is a great way to do it, but beware of using their encompassing ECR, which is the expert consensus rankings. It's like 180 people that rank. Not all of them are up to date. There are certain people out there that just put their rankings out there. They don't update them for months. They're out of date. The injured players are ranked too high, or players that just got bumped down depth charts, etc. It's a little wonky. So if you do use Fantasy Pros, find a handful of rankers that you trust. And you can filter their rankings by just those handful of guys. I hate shitting on Fantasy Pros, but they really do need to do a better job of cleaning those up. I've gotten on them about it, in emails, being like, yeah. I actually finally got them to take ECR out of our rankings, the column.
I think I just heard the sound of Fantasy Pros canceling you from ranking for them at this point.
Doubt it. But I finally got them to take ECR out of our rankings widget because it's not even a relevant stat anymore when you compare it to, because there's just so many guys that don't update their rankings enough. And
honestly, this plays back into, the initial tip here of drafting later, because rankings are done early by some people and then they just lay off of them until the very beginning of the season or preseason, I guess. And you're going to have mixed matched information. So again, find a site that you like, go with it, and have trust in it. Make sure that they're up to date. Make sure that it's something that's going to have good player news, player updates, injuries, whatever it might be. I definitely am all for the draft prep with that.
Yeah, Emily or Garrett, you all have anything to add to that before we jump into our next segment here?
No, I think you guys covered it well.
All right. So we are going to take a break from our advice here, and we're going to be giving out our Scott Fish Bowl 12 entry. So we did, I announced on Twitter a way to win a free entry. Not a free entry, way to win an entry into Scott Fish Bowl 12. And people, I was hoping people would either donate to MS, which is something that we try to raise money for here with Fantasy Six Pack, or the Fantasy Cares, which is the big thing that Scott Fish does, which is fantastic. So I know Scott Fish is all about the charity, so I figured that would be a good way to get people in. We did have a total of, I believe it was 14 entries. So I'm going to put everybody into a 100-yard rush, and if you don't know what that is, I'm gonna just get us out of here to help out so we can see here. It's gonna be a little small, but we'll see what happens. So I have everybody's name here. I have the settings here. So we're just gonna go. You can see everything that's going on. There's all 14 names right here.
Oh, can I be added?
Unfortunately not. I think we're gonna be just sticking with these 14 for now. But Emily, like I should explain before the show, I think we'll figure something out with you. But we'll start the rush here and see how it goes.
All right, LaPlante, chug off. Let's go.
Good guys.
Good luck,
All
everyone.
right.
Oh, this is funny.
Yeah, 100-yard rush is fun for determining like random order stuff, especially football. It's pretty good. So, New England fan, Matt Palmer. Oh, we've got a little rush at the end there. Matt_Palmer gets the entry.
Nice.
So, Matt, I will be reaching out to you after the show, and I will reach out to. I will be reaching out to.
New England fan also has the number 12 in this thing. Man, that would have been serendipitous, but.
So I'll be reaching out to you on Twitter and getting a hold of Scott as well to make sure that you get your entry and enjoy the Scott Fish Bowl, man. It is a lot of fun. You're gonna meet a lot of cool people. The initial rush that weekend that the draft starts is fun, very very fun.
Wait. Congrats!
It is definitely congrats. So. All right, let's jump into piece of advice number 2. Emily.
Yes, I want to talk about the fact that there are not just games on Sundays. Be aware that the NFL games are on Saturdays,
Yes.
They're on Sundays, they're on Mondays, and they're on Thursdays. And by all means, watch football. It's the best way to understand players' values and stats, and it enhances the fantasy football experience. You'll find yourself cheering on all the players on your roster. But with that said, I want to just reiterate how important it is to be prepared with your lineup set at the beginning of the week.
Yeah.
Yes. 100%.
I miss football on Wednesdays.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Didn't we have a Tuesday game during
we
the
did.
COVID year?
Yes.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh!
Yeah, we had Tuesday games. Those.
We had a football game on every day of the week that year.
I'm gonna be honest. As somebody who does rankings, those are the worst. I wish we only had them on Sundays again. I miss that. It was so much easier. Sundays and Monday. That was it. I didn't have to worry about it before then. Yeah, but no, that's a great one, Emily. I do like that. You've got to stay on top of it. And just to add to that, never put your Thursday or Saturday player in your flex position ever. Because if you do it, you lose the flexibility of your roster. Like if a player gets hurt that on like Sunday, Saturday practice, right, for a Sunday game or for a Monday game, and he's your starting running back, you're screwed. You may not be able to put your next best player in. So I know, everybody thinks my best player is in my running back, my best player is in my right receiver spot, and then my next best player is in my flex spot. No, it doesn't matter. They all earn points the same no matter where they are. So you've got to put the guys that play early in like the running back spot or the receiver spot because you need the flex spots in case something happens at the last minute. I mean, we've seen guys get hurt in pregame warmups before. You've got to be able to adjust on the fly, and if you lock yourself up like that, it gives you less chances of doing it.
Honestly, I do that for fantasy baseball, where if I know a guy is starting in an earlier game and he's got first base eligibility, okay, great. I may have Matt Olson locked in at first base. Well, you're going to move down because maybe you get the day off today, and I don't know. So go with that. It's the same thing for football. You definitely want to maximize the amount of points you can bring in to your team every week. And that's the way to do it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, Garrett, what's your number 2 fantasy football piece of advice for casual players?
All right, so I'm going to go a little bit more specific here. Also, sticking to kind of my draft theme, a little bit more specific, not quite as general, but either draft your tight end early, such as a Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, George Kittle. Either draft them early, top tier, or wait until later. And either draft them late, stream the position. You'll see a lot of content come out about tight end streaming during the regular season. And the main reason for that is past the first couple tight ends, it's just a crapshoot. Like flip a coin and that tight end could be a tight end 1.
Yeah.
He could finish in the top 12. It's
whoever gets the touchdowns.
Exactly. I wrote down just a couple numbers, and I'm basing this off of some data from Fantasy Data ADP. But Dalton Schultz, Dawson Knox, and Zach Ertz, they were all drafted past tight end 21. So the 21st tight end drafted, and Knox was the 27th, and Schultz was the 32nd. All those guys, were almost undrafted or very late in drafts, but yet all of them ended up in, I want to say the top 10 in tight ends. So, you never know when you find that late round gem. So either go top tier very early in your draft or wait until the very end and try to take a shot at a high upside guy.
I agree.
Don't go for the middle tier.
100% agree. Cause I think we've been doing the team previews, me, Dave Eddy, Mike LaPlante, and Dylan Clemens. We've been doing the team previews, and the one thing that we keep mentioning when you get to that past, I don't know, tight end 6-ish is they're all the same. They're all they're all touchdown dependent. Maybe you kind of the Zach Ertz slightly more than the next guy, but it's probably not worth the draft capital you're spending on him. And you can get Logan Thomas for free, at the end, just because nobody's going to draft him. And Logan Thomas was tight end 5 2 years ago. So I mean, that's what we're talking about. Dawson Knox was a nobody last year until all of a sudden, boom, 9 touchdowns. Okay.
Yeah, it's there. I mean, you got to follow what the trends are, but if you're a casual player, you shouldn't care about tight end that much anyways, because it's like catcher in baseball. We talk about it all the time. There's very few elite options to go after. So, pick your battles. If you'd rather build depth elsewhere, then do that and find a tight end later, and you'll be fine. You'll be able to find one on waivers too. So,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I'm done.
No, you're good.
Because
no, go. I thought you were.
It's you.
Okay,
I'll just mute AJ, Garrett.
That was me that time. Sorry.
So use, let me start that over. In most leagues, you're only starting one tight end, and your flex spot is usually a wide receiver or running back. So you're only going to be using one tight end, and running backs and wide receivers are a lot more valuable to your team. So you, instead of going for a middle round tight end, go for depth at either the running back or the wide receiver position. That will help your team better in the long run, and then just stream the tight end position and use that draft capital for higher value positions.
Yeah, I have pretty much the exact same. It's not one of my top 3 ranked, but it's one of the ones that I had written down as a potential one, but I have the same thing written down for quarterbacks. It's not as drastic for me as tight end as weight. I think you can go QB early, but the only difference with QBs is there's just so many good ones. That's the difference. So it's just you don't need to go early because there's so many that are going to be viable options down the stretch. But it's the same thing. go after the depth at the other positions that you got to start multiple players at instead of going after a position where it's only one in your normal casual league, right? So that's what it is. But I do want to say Connor chimed in here. Handwriting down a few notes before the draft has helped me out a lot. Yeah, I like that too. If you can't, either just typing it on a notepad on your computer, having it up and ready, something, whatever, having whatever database or, stat sheet you like beforehand, that is the way to go, man. Do you adjust it all for tight end? I'm guessing that's tight end premium leagues or still treat essentially the same?
Slightly.
Yes. Yeah. I will bump the elite tight ends up way more. So like the Kelseys and like last year it would have been, Waller, although that didn't work. But, this year, Andrews and those guys who, if you get an extra point per reception for those guys or an extra half point per reception for those guys, they do get bumped up a bit more. But it's only the elite guys. The ones after that, they're still all the same. They're just interchangeable, in my opinion. Do you guys, anybody agree or disagree with that?
No, I agree with that.
Yeah, I think that that tight ends get a slight bump, but that's compared to, say, wide receivers or running backs who also, catch passes in their respective offenses. So, like, they'll get a slight bump up, but, like, not enough that I'm targeting them over a wide receiver in some of the middle rounds, unless there's some sort of great value that I'm getting by going for the tight end.
Yeah, I mean, and so just for example, right, Scott Fish 2 years ago went tight end premium, and that very first season, Travis Kelce was not quarterback. Get rid of the quarterbacks, but he was the number 6 ranked player out of running backs, receivers, and tight ends because it was tight end premium for that league, and that was his like crazy good year. And then of course he went like number 2 or number 3 in most drafts last season. It didn't quite work out, but he still returned close to that value. Waller was close behind and fell short, way more short than that.
Yeah.
Some due to injury, but also just he wasn't producing quite as much. But yeah, again, I think it's that elite tier can get pushed up a little bit more, but after that, I would say don't reach. Don't get sucked into the tight end premium after, tight end maybe even 8 or 9 at that point.
Yeah, I would think depending on what you're going to give up versus reading too much into the tight end premium, you might have a guy that's going to help you on a bye week. You might have a guy that's going to be an injury replacement if your top receiver or running back goes down, and then you have to start playing this guy, and then you went after a pick because of tight end premium. Don't read too much into league rules. I mean, we'll get to that a little later, but that's kind of my take on it. I do bump guys up a little bit more, but not like egregiously. So
yeah.
All right.
Agreed. AJ, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is just be present and set your lineups. Like if you're a casual player, again, you might not necessarily
follow your own rules.
Give an F. Can I talk here? I mean,
no, because I just love how you get called out. Because he's right.
Wait, how I got called out or you?
You. He said follow your own rules, AJ.
When did I not set a lineup?
I've heard quite the stories of baseball and fantasy lineups for Scott Fishbowl.
What? All right, you're a liar. All right.
You've told him on air, but okay.
So yeah, it's don't be a crappy manager. Like if you're gonna jump in and you're just a casual player, you're just doing it for the hell of it, you still need to set your lineups because what you do will affect the outcome for the entire league.
Yes.
And you need to be a team player in the fact that you're part of this league. You've potentially paid money to join this league and or win money, you need to follow through on that. And you can't just look at your rankings or your standings and say, well, like 4 games out, whatever. You might be 4 games out from first place, but you're probably still in a playoff race. And you might only be 1 or 2 games out from that. So just try a little bit and see what happens. And you might surprise yourself. Set your lineups though. Don't, unless you're absolutely devastated with injuries and you ran out of IR spots and you can't pick anybody up because you don't want to drop certain guys. At least try to fill a starting lineup. Don't just have guys that are on a bye in your lineup and then have 6 guys on your bench that could have filled that spot and maybe even won you the week, because that does matter.
And for people who aren't sure if maybe the reason they're not filling their lineups is because they're unsure of who to put in, there are different generators that people can use to the sit start generators. So look up, compare the 2 players and say, who should I start today? And you can get an answer.
Absolutely.
And that's one way to start to do it. If you can't trust yourself yet, I highly recommend it. Yeah,
AJ, you mentioned you never know. You might be in the playoff hunt even though you don't think so. Even if you are 1-9 and you're out of it, you never know. It's called Any Given Sunday for a reason, right? Yeah. You never know. You can win and you may not make the playoffs, but you could change the outcome of the playoff race. You could be playing the number 5 team that if they lose that last week of the season, they're out of the playoffs if one team behind them wins. Don't punt a week because it's not fair, because I've seen it. My dynasty league is the worst with this, right? I've seen it where the teams at the very bottom just give up, right? They don't even set lineups, and it changes the draft order, which in a dynasty league is huge. It changes the playoff order, which is huge, right? It changes a whole bunch of things, and it's not fair for the teams who played them in the first third or 2/3 of the season and they were still trying and setting lineups, and they might have lost that one random week to them, to where at the end they're getting free wins. That's not fair to anybody. It takes 15 seconds to go click, put a couple people in your lineup and be done.
Right.
It bothers me to my core when people don't do that.
On a Thursday, when you know that somebody you might want to play in that flex position is going to play, it's still better.
Yes.
At least it shows you tried. That's what you want to do.
You sign up for this, you signed up, you know what you signed up for, put the investment in. Even if your team stinks, it doesn't take that much more work at the end of the season to just put a roster of usually 9 healthy players in your starting lineup. Even if you think it doesn't matter, it's just that bothers me to my core.
It always matters.
So, real quick, I'm gonna add something, because I had this down as a tip, but then it kind of got wrapped into the discussion. So I'll just throw this out here. So as a real life example, I started off a league last year 2-6. So I was firmly out. I think I was bottom of the league. But if you continue setting lineups, eventually, if you have a decent team, luck should break your side. I had one league where it didn't, and I was out of the playoffs. But in this particular one, eventually I hit that luck. I rattled off the last 6 games. I won each of the last 6. So I started 2-6, and I won, and I finished 8-6. Got into the playoffs. I won the league.
I've seen it happen many times.
I had a couple of teams last year where I had a couple of shares of Lamar Jackson, and we know he went down for a while, and so I had Tyler Huntley. Luckily, I knew how to work the waiver wire, and I think that's a really big part of it too, is knowing when to put in the waivers and knowing that you will have to give up a spot on your bench, but it could be that's the best way to better your roster is through the waiver wire.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's another good tip. I had it written down. It wasn't one of my top three.
Sorry about that.
No, it's fine. That was another good tip. It wasn't one of the ones I was going to say, so I was hoping somebody was going to say it.
Yeah.
Even if it's just like kind of thrown into the mix of another one. But let me give my number 2 now. Sorry, AJ, you got one more thing?
I was just going to say, I agree. Don't spend the entire season holding on to the number 1 waiver claim when you're going to need it at some point that has already passed.
Yeah. So my number 2, I went back and forth on a couple ones. I had one about like if you're setting up a league, but I felt like I'll go away from that one. I'm gonna go to trading, and this is something AJ, you and I have talked about before on other draft shows, and we talk about it sometimes in the beginning of the season. Trading. Yeah, maybe in your casual leagues, trading isn't a big deal, but I guarantee you it does still happen time and time again. When you are trading, please look at the other team's roster that you are actually trading with. If they have 3 good running backs and they only have 2 good receivers, do not send them another running back and ask for one of their only good receivers. Just please don't. That is a big fat no. On the flip side of that, right? Respond to trades. That's the worst, man. Like, please respond. Even if it's a no, just at least hit decline. Like, again, like setting lineups. Put in the 5 seconds it takes to open the email link and go decline. It doesn't matter. It'd be awesome if you could leave a comment because they give you that option. Every single site does. Yeah. But at least decline it. Like, just.
Even if your decline comment is a repetitive picture of Grumpy Cat saying no, then eventually that person will get the point.
Yeah, I just it is just one of the things where like, but back to the main point of it is you need to figure out if you want player A from that team, you need to figure out what their need is, right? And offer them something that they would like to accept that's going to make their team better and your team better in return for, because you want that player, right? You can't just, I know it happened because people, they take advantage of people who like don't really know what's going on. So I know it happens in leagues, but in reality, trades should benefit both sides. In some way. So that's the way you need to go into a trade when you are offering it is how does it benefit me? Oh, and how does it benefit the other team? Because you got to reverse the tables. If you got offered that same trade, would you accept it? If the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't send it.
No.
That's a good question to ask yourself. Yeah. That's a really good question.
Yeah. I have had that question with many people, even people who are
probably with me.
And, I wasn't gonna call you out, but I'm glad you. Yes, over there, right there. This guy right here. This guy right here. I know it. Yeah. Gary's got it easy. He's just going up. Yeah. Ellie and I are like, wait, we're like mirrored here. It's weird. Yeah.
If I'm sending you a trade offer, it's more just because I know what your response is going to be. So I'll send that shit trade offer being like, yeah.
AJ had 3 triples and decided to send some trade offers. Yeah.
I was like,
so do you guys recommend drinking and trading? I've heard about that.
I mean,
I'll give you
probably
Peoples Jones or T. Higgins.
Oh,
I usually get them and I'm like, wait, I'm going to answer tomorrow.
Yeah. I recommend drinking and trade offering if you have a limit on it that's at least 24 hours so you can relook at it in the morning and be like, oh, what was I doing? And the other person you hope is drinking while you sent that trade offer and you're like, oh, damn, they accepted. I need to get a quick email into the commish. Oh, shit, he is the commish. Never mind. No. Yeah, I didn't mean to send that.
Yeah, there's a there's an article that I've written in the past about the art of trading. A lot of that stuff's in there. I got to dig it up somewhere. I got to find it. It's been a while, but Yeah. Trading is a skill. You need it, but it doesn't need to be that hard. It really isn't.
No.
It just.
I had that one as well, and I'm glad that you mentioned it because I know we talk about it, ad nauseum, and it's just like, why?
I get so many. I basically have so I'm in a dynasty baseball league that loves to trade, and I basically nobody wants to trade with me anymore because I'm just sick and tired of their bad trade offers. And I'm like, no, stop, just stop, just please stop. I will come at you when I want to trade. Bye. You just stopped offering at this point because I got tired of it.
Somehow hijacked that league and am sending you all of those trades while drunk, probably. This is gonna be fun. He's gonna decline that.
All right. So let's get to our drum roll, please. Number 1 piece of fantasy football advice for casual players. Emily, lead us off.
Look ahead at the upcoming schedule. If you're streaming defense or QB,
yes. So glad you said this.
So be aware of juicy matchups in the playoffs. If you're contending,
this is AJ's favorite too, by the way.
Damn it.
If you're contending, start to make moves for players and defenses that have juicy playoff matchups that can be exploited. In some cases, I'll actually pick up a defense or QB that I plan to use 3 to 4 weeks in advance in the future if I have the bench space available. So that's something I highly recommend doing.
100%. AJ, I'll let you have that one.
B, I really love that. C, I follow that. And D, the idea of picking someone up because of their future schedule is huge, especially if you're a casual player in a casual league. That's how you win that league. You do a little research, you figure out what are these matchups coming up, and there's other sites and content that put stuff out about this, and rankings for specific playoff weeks or leading up to the playoffs. That's another thing too to piggyback off of this. If you're kind of in that hunt, but you're looking at a seeding position and trying to better your seeding, you're going to make the playoffs, but you want to get a better seed or maybe go for that bye, look ahead. You have to do that. That is a beautiful point. Thank you so much for mentioning that. I love it.
It was one of mine. It was definitely one of mine. And to add to that a little bit too is when you get to the playoffs, right? You don't need your depth as much as you would during the season. During the season, you need your depth for bye weeks. You need your depth for random injuries. You get an injury in the playoff, you're picking some schmuck off the waiver wire most likely anyway, right? I mean, it is what it is. Your starting running back goes down. You're hoping you run to the waiver wire before everybody else and go pick up their replacement because that's who you're probably starting. So yes, drop all those. We hope they're going to be good, guys. If so-and-so goes down, they're going to be good. Drop those players. Go get if you're streaming QBs, go get your streamable quarterbacks for the playoffs. Go get your streamable defenses. I do it every single year, unless I've got,
Even if you're streaming kickers all season long, don't give that up in the playoffs. Go for it.
And we should note that for the regular casual player that the NFL playoffs have nothing to do with the fantasy football playoffs.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the season ends in week 16 or 17 of the regular season.
Great follow-up point.
Can I also say, don't play in week 18, please. If you're in a league like that, just leave. Just leave.
Drop out and sign up for a new league that ends on week 17. Or even
I love getting week 18 questions, and I'm like, I don't even know who's playing this week. I'm checked out. I'm sorry, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah. You know how tired I am from the 17-week season of doing rankings and everything else, and being in about 50 leagues. I'm done. So
week 18 questions this week or this year.
I already know to ignore you, AJ. All right, Garrett, what is your number 1 piece of advice for fantasy football casual players?
All right, so y'all stole mine at that last discussion. So I'm gonna pivot here.
Sure.
And go with with your late round picks, take shots at high upside players. Don't settle for floor picks.
Yes.
Go. Now I'm trying to remember players off the top of my head.
So there's this. Okay, but like, hear about this. Explain maybe what that means for somebody may not really know what you mean by floors. Like I think most people probably do, but I mean that's what this show is for. This episode is for. It's like this is explain what you mean by that.
So guys with upside, like for me, I know I made a joke about Donovan Peoples-Jones earlier on the Cleveland Browns, but he's going late in drafts, and this is not a homer pick here. As a Browns fan, but like legitimately, he's a great downfield threat. Had one of the best yards per reception last season. I've seen some of the metrics as far as like he's got really good hands, and I think he's an underrated receiver. All that to say, he's with Deshaun Watson now, and who was extremely valuable when he played with Deshaun Watson? Will Fuller. And it's highly possible that DPJ could fill that Will Fuller role with Watson in Cleveland once the legal situation all that sorts out.
If we don't know.
But
yes, good point.
But assuming that Watson is playing, he could fill that role and explode have a great fantasy season. Meanwhile, you could go for I don't know exactly how late he is going in drafts, but say
Mecole Hardman.
Mecole Hardman.
I was gonna say Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb seems boring but safe.
The first name that came to my mind for some stupid reason was Jamison Crowder on the Bills. So
Tim Patrick from the Broncos.
Yeah,
I think he's got upside though.
I actually like
I was gonna say I like
Tim Patrick a lot.
Ceilings.
But yeah, Randall Cobb's a good example. Like, okay, he'll catch a couple passes per week. 3, 4, and then probably have like 40 yards. So he'll get some points per week, but that's kind of his ceiling. He's not going to have big weeks. You know what he is at this point in his career. Like he's aging, and he's not going to have a big explosive season. So don't settle for just absolute, even though he's got a fair amount of volume and he's safe, quote unquote, it's not going to do your team any good. You're probably going to be dropping said late round pick in the first couple weeks anyway. Yeah. So
you said that.
So the floor is the lowest, and then the ceiling is the highest a player can score for you.
Yeah,
exactly. So,
on the flip side, I don't go risky in the beginning. Like so you can't. There's always a saying, and a lot of people agree with this. You're not going to win your drafts in the first couple of rounds, but you can certainly lose them if you go too risky early on. Yeah, it's gonna bite you. Like, so it's take the risk later, not earlier. I love that.
Yeah. If you're going to drop your players, if you're probably going to drop those late round picks anyway, make sure that they're going to be high upside picks that could, have a great couple weeks. You could decide to keep them, if they work out, or capitalize on that value and trade them.
Yeah. And we will certainly be having articles on fantasy6pack.net that will be highlighting a lot of those players by position, by the way. So make sure you tune in. I believe those will be getting released sometime in July. So
that's what I was going to say. I love that point too. If they've made their name or so in the first few weeks, do not be afraid to just dump that player. Unless it's a known quantity, if you know what you're getting in this person and they've shown consistency in years past, then that's why you drafted them as a casual player. But that's going to be an early round pick. If you cash in on somebody with one of these mid to later round picks, don't be afraid to pedal them out there for something that you need or to build depth, especially during the playoff run, if you will. right before your trade deadline. Maybe not the week before, but a couple weeks before. You might lose out on another week of solid production from that player. They may get injured in that week. I haven't said any names, so no one's getting injured that I know of at this point.
You're not allowed to talk about players.
I have not said any names. So I've been known to jinx people.
Beware of the AJ voodoo.
Yes.
Player X.
If I
could
say
get
a
injured.
name the
He
week
does.
before your trade deadline, immediately trade that player. This is basically what I'm getting.
All right, AJ, let's get your number 2 here. Or number 1, sorry.
My number 1 is
I don't know where I'm at.
Yeah, clearly. That's what the triple will do to you. My number 1 is, yes, you're a casual player, but please do some, air quotes, research. And there's a lot that goes into this, but it's learn your league managers. If you're in a casual league with other players who are casual players, great. But look at what their trends are. And if it becomes a league that you go back to year after year after year, and even if it's a redraft league, you can still follow the trends that these people do. And people tend to stick with what they know and whatnot, especially in a casual game. So learn from what everybody else is doing. Follow your injury news.
Yeah.
Again, we kind of touched on this earlier. Don't jam up a flex position that's going to hamstring injury your team because you didn't follow up on news. Make sure if a guy is questionable going into a Thursday game or whatever, move him down. Don't risk everything to lose 1 week. But if you lose 1 week, hey, it happens. Everybody loses. So you got to do that and just follow that. And last but not least, we kind of talked about it a little bit with the Browns thing. Don't necessarily be a homer manager. And I know you weren't alluding to that, Garrett, but if you're a casual player, don't go into your league being like, oh, I'm a Dolphins fan. I'm going to draft all Dolphins and whatever. You're not going to win your league. So just stop. Especially if you're a Dolphins fan.
Can I tell you a funny story about that? So I'm in a league with family and friends, and they're all Ravens fans. And they literally don't know anything. But this girl drafted
your other league managers.
But she drafted Justin Tucker in like round 5 because. But the other league managers were drafting so crazy that her team ended up being really, really good that year. And after the draft, I went, you guys somehow let the team who drafted Justin Tucker in the 5th round draft probably the best team in the league. She won the freaking league.
So good.
I was like, oh, I've never, ever seen that happen. That's only going to happen in that kind of crazy league. No, it wasn't actually.
What's your final one, Joe?
I don't know if AJ was done. I think I cut him off just slightly, but
no, I'm good. I
Okay.
was checking my things off. I'm like, don't hit this, but yeah.
And you can be.
There's our people too. Okay, love it, David.
What's up, Hank? What's
Aw,
up?
David.
I was not
David,
ripping
love
on
you.
Dolphins fans. I don't even know why that became.
Right, AJ goes in and half his teams are Eagles. Is after the draft.
No,
he knows it every year. No, just kidding.
And if you're a little bit
Sometimes
too much of a homer or a homer player, I was able to trade. I don't remember the exact.
Yes, that too.
thing.
No,
I don't
that's
remember the
good.
exact
You
thing that I
can
did.
use
But,
that.
Take advantage.
no, seriously, I got
You find the homer manager. and
some
you're like,
crazy
"Oh."
sized league that I was in, and this dude was a 49ers fan, and he wanted to get all the 49ers. So I completely robbed
Yes.
the dude. like with one of their, it's an IDP as well. So like it was like their third string linebacker, but I got this massive return because I'm just like,
he is one of the 49ers
fan, and here you go. And so yeah, sometimes you can take advantage of it, but
don't be a homer manager. don't know
don't
who the homer managers
are, yes,
and then fleece them in the trades.
100%. All right, so my number one here to finish things out here is do not go into a draft with a predetermined plan of who you're picking and where. You cannot go into your draft with the 11th pick going, I'm going to pick running back, or receiver, running back, or receiver, or tight end receiver, or whatever it is. You cannot do that. Play the board. Best player available is the best way to draft. And look, you think about it, right? If you're in the back end of the first round, just take this for example. Something crazy happens. Your league is nuts. Say Cooper Kupp falls to you at pick 11, but you go, oh, well, I got to get 2 running backs with my first 2 picks. So you pass on Cooper Kupp. You lost. You lost. Like, you lose that draft. So it could it work? Sure. Has it worked before? Absolutely. But you've got to play best player available. You know, at the same time as we talked about earlier, like you can't just, be, okay, this is what the rankings say. I've got to draft this way. But, so you've got to build your balanced team at the same time. But that's where, like, each round you got to realize, okay, what's available? What does my team need? Make the adjustment and go. But, the way you're going to win your league is through the draft more often than not, right? That's your biggest building block of your team is the draft. So you've got to take the values that fall to you when they fall. If not, somebody else will take that advantage over you. I've seen it happen time and time again. People are like, oh, I'm going to go running back, receiver. And then they just get totally screwed because everybody else wanted to do the same thing, and all the receivers fell, and they could have had like 2 complete stud receivers, and instead they took 2 mediocre running backs at the end of the first round, at the beginning of the second round, and then all the receivers that came back to them because everybody else before them wanted 2 receivers, they got 2 mediocre receivers instead. So it's just like sometimes you have to zig when everybody else zags. So
that's a great point.
That is my number one tip of the night. So
pick the best player. I completely agree.
Yeah. And there are tools out there. We do not have one, although we are working on it. I don't know if it's going to be ready for this season, but we're working on something where it's a cheat sheet that's going to have best player available, kind of a draft sheet that you can adjust with custom scoring and things like that. But it's something that has been in the back of my mind for a while that I want to get going. But things just haven't worked out quite that way. But I've used those in the past before, especially for baseball, and they work wonders. So go find those if you need them. But I think we have a bonus one here, and AJ, I'll let you announce this one.
Oh, because I stole.
Oh, because you stole my real one. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right. Okay, let me pull back up.
It's have fun. Oh wait, AJ already said that.
Yeah. Number 1 rule that we always discuss on the Fantasy 6-Pack Hour, and we are in consensus here. We will all talk about this. Learn your league's rules.
And
settings. Yes.
Settings.
Yes.
League rules. Settings. Yes. You have to do this. You could go into this even, and again, it falls in with this was the first one I wrote under my do some research. Read the damn rules for your league. I mean,
I thought you were going to say that when you started talking about research. I was like, AJ's going to give it away.
Nope. I literally look. I left it unchecked.
Yep.
Well, I checked it now because I've already talked about it. But you cannot go into this as a casual player without at least looking at your league rules, at least looking at your league roster setup. I mean,
yes,
the majority of
100%.
Casual leagues are going to be a 10 to 12 team league. You may only have 2 receivers,
1 quarterback. Yeah, maybe
ridiculous. There's enough teams in the league that have one really good receiver that everybody could draft. But if you don't follow what the hell we've been talking about for the last hour and almost 5 minutes, you're going to not get one of those teams' number one receivers. So follow everything. Look at the league rules. Anybody else have anything else to say on this topic? I'm confused.
I mean, it's just like if you're going to have a T premium league where there's a tight end, where there's a premium on the tight end, that's where we go back to talking about drafting a top tight end in your first couple of rounds or first few rounds. Same with a SuperFlex league. If you're going to have 2 QBs that you have to start, you better make sure they're both not on bye weeks. But also, I just completely lost my train of thought.
No,
it just happened.
No, that's a great point though. If you're in a SuperFlex league or a 2 quarterback league, and you draft 2 quarterbacks early because you're like, oh, I know I want to get this guy, I know I want to get this guy, and then you look at it 6 picks later and you're like, oh shit, both of the guys I really wanted were on the same bye week.
Yeah, that's
you need a 3rd quarterback, or you're going to need an injury replacement quarterback because guess what? Injuries happen. So you gotta draft smart, be smart about it, do a little bit of research.
I will say this too, AJ. This is not just the casual fans. I mean, come on. You and I
everybody.
both are in industry
Everybody.
leagues, right? And we get people showing up to drafts. Is this half PPR or full? Do we have 3 receivers or 2 flex? Are we doing defenses?
And if
Where
people are
have you been
asking
for the
those
last 2
questions
months, dude?
and you've
Come
done the
on.
research, lie to them.
Yeah,
Lie
right?
to them immediately and tell them
It's insane how many people
PPR,
don't read the rules. And I love the people that have been in the league for the last like 4 years and they still don't know the rules. Like those ones crack me up. You're like, they come into the draft like the day of and they're like, oh wait, are we full PPR? Like, dude, I know you're in a lot of leagues, but come on, man, you've been in this one for 4 years.
Since when did we change to 3 receivers?
But the biggest reason why you need to do that is it does change how you draft. Like if you need 3 receivers, you need to start targeting them a little earlier. You know, I think most casual leagues, ESPN's default rate is 2. You know, if you are in a Superflex, you're going to have to target them earlier, as you mentioned. Like, it does change the way you draft. You know, it does change players' value, right? So best player available changes when you've got different roster settings. So that is a big one here, too. I think this is a huge one to finish up on.
It falls back into the rankings discussion that you had, too. Like, go to a site that has rankings, but look at your roster or look at your league settings first and figure out what the hell you need to look for. And then go to a site that'll have those options.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you may not be able to find sites that let you customize, because a lot of them pay, but you need to do that in your head and realize, oh, I need to bump up receivers a little bit more if I've got 3 or 4, and maybe these are only for 2 and whatever. But we do have one last question here from Seth Melton. Is there a specific point in the draft? And I think Garrett, this was the thing that you mentioned, right, where you start targeting, or the game plan, making your game plan to go with upside targets.
Yeah.
Late mid, early late rounds. Normally for me, like it's after I've gotten, my starting lineup's filled and I've got a couple bench players that I can kind of rely on as far as depth goes. Once I've gotten my starting lineup and my bench more or less filled out, you don't have to have it, completely filled out and your last 2 picks can be dart throws, but like or high upside like I was talking about. But you want to make sure that you've got enough depth to help you through the season before you go for those high upside picks.
Yeah.
That way you don't shoot yourself in the foot by trying to go for a guy that has a lot of upside by going for it too early if he doesn't work out.
I agree. You do need to get some, I hate to say the word safer, but you do need some safer, more established bench players before you start going after your upside. You can't just draft your 8 or 9 starters and then go, oh, okay, now I'm all upside. You're because you need depth. I mean, their injuries are going to happen, as AJ said. You know, we got bye weeks. If you have all upside bench players and they all fail on you, what are you going to do? You can hopefully, you know, get lucky with the waiver wire every single pick and get all, you know, money free agents, but that doesn't usually happen.
Good luck.
Yeah, right? Yeah, exactly.
If
Emily.
you manage to figure that out, let me know.
Yeah. Come hit work for us, and well, you need a job doing this.
You have a content space here.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with having floor plays, and I know I kind of disparaged them a little bit earlier, but like as far as like mid-round floor plays, just safe plays that will keep your team afloat, like that's fine. Like I'm not saying don't go for those guys. I'm saying like in the later rounds, if you know a guy is probably going to have a mediocre season at best in the later rounds, and he's probably not even going to crack your starting lineup, even when you add your bench players in, that's when you go for the high upside. So normally, I want to say normal leagues are about 15-ish rounds. 15,
16 rounds, yeah.
So
even with defenses and kickers, so yeah.
Yeah, I'd be doing it around round 11, 12.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
It kind of depends on how much or how many starters you have and your bench, and whether or not you do defense and kickers. Most casual leagues do.
Yes.
With those guys, and we may have mentioned this before, those are your last two picks. Your defense and kickers are your last
That was my number 4, which I didn't get to say, but yes. Davis has one last thing. I ran to the people's teams. I ran work leagues. Learn the sport. And yeah, AJ, I think you're the one who mentioned that earlier. Emily, maybe you did. Watch football. Emily, that was you. Watch football. Red Zone's a glorious thing. You can watch all the football. I know it costs a little money, but it is fantastic. But all right, that is it for the show, everybody. I want to thank you, Emily and Garrett, for coming on and talking these tips with us. I had a good time talking. So Emily, before we let you bounce here, let everybody know where they can find you and what you got on tap for us this season.
Oh, okay. Well, you can find me at Fantasy Six Pack as well as with Dynasty Nerds. I have a few articles coming out in the next couple of weeks that you can watch for me on my Twitter account. And I'm going to be co-hosting a podcast starting in a month and a half. It's called the Hustlers Fantasy Football Podcast with Charlie Vaskin. And so him and I of Fantasy Six Pack will be hosting that, and we look forward to it. So thanks for allowing us the opportunity, Joe.
Absolutely. Looking forward to getting that podcast rolling.
Me too.
All right, Garrett. Same thing for you, man.
Yep. And you can find me on Twitter at GarrettBFF. I'm slacking a little bit this week because I've had some late work days, but I'm trying to pump out as much.
How dare you?
Real life.
So the guy showed up 15 minutes late.
15 minutes.
He wasn't.
15 seconds late.
10 minutes.
The plant.
But yeah,
where are you on the chug off? Still chugging?
Let Garrett have his moment. Jesus.
Sorry, I apologize.
But yeah, best ball season is in full swing right now. That is where you have the draft, and then the computer automatically does their best lineup for you. So I'm getting out content about that, some late round values for you guys to pick up, doing a bunch of threads on that on Twitter. And also I host my own podcast, Ballfield Banter. You can find that on Spotify and on iTunes or Apple Podcast, what have you. And yeah, I'll be doing a bunch of stuff on Fantasy Six Pack as well with some team previews, and I think I'm actually doing some wide receivers as well.
Nice
sleepers and busts, I believe.
We're talking about. All right, well, thank you, Emily and Garrett. We'll have to do this again soon.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Cool.
Thanks
for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
All right, take care.
All right, AJ. I think you clicked the wrong button, Mike. Jeez, man, you kicked the wrong guy out. I was like, I got the wrong co-host over here.
Are we sure about that?
I don't know. We're not totally sure. But anyway, All right, so
Co-host
that's
is
it for the
most.
show. So I do want to rip through, by the way, the rest of the shows that we've got coming up. So next week we're doing some best ball talk with Preston and Davis Pang from the site. Then we're going AFC East, AFC North, AFC South, AFC West, NFC East, NFC North, NFC South, NFC West. And then, by the way, the guests for those, Troy King, Chris Allen, Miss Lindelians, Linda, Howard Bender. We got Rudy Gamble, Pat Fitzmaurice,
Beautiful.
Samantha Privite,
This is a beautiful.
Bob Harris. It is a glorious lineup. I'm loving it. I'm so excited. And by the way, mixed into all of that is our Scott Fishbowl charity show where we are raising money for multiple sclerosis. I will be posting lots and lots and lots about that on Twitter. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a ton of good guests for that show. Little 15-minute segments with multiple people. I've already got a bunch of really good guests for that already. I'm looking to get lots and lots more. So that's a fun show. That's kind of just plugged in there in the middle, like a Tuesday night, the day after the Scott Fish Bowl starts. So yeah, and then at the very beginning of September, by the way, we're doing our rankings review before the season starts that last weekend with the winner of the expert accuracy contest there over on Fantasy Pros last year, Jeff Ratcliffe. So yeah, star-studded guests that we've got here. I'm looking forward to getting all these guys on and gals.
Welcome to football season, people. We're
right.
here.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to all this. We're gonna be rolling right into it next week, and yeah, that's the show, folks. Let's close it out, and we will see you next week.